the big thing these companies need to lean into is competition. And that's what I feel like has been missing for a very, very long time. One of the things that made, in fact, I would say this is probably the strongest part of what made the console war of the 90s so powerful was the competition between Nintendo and Sega.
Oh, welcome to the Matcave, where the old games never fade. Stack of great cards, glowing CRT. Welcome to the Matcave, heartbeats in 8-bit waves. You can plug in, you can still play free. Keep the pixels bright, pass the pad tonight. Every level cleared keeps the legends alive. If the future's loud, let the past still play.
That competition, it basically created the push that both companies needed to make great video games. And the competition went not just between the games themselves, but it was out there in the commercials. It was in the marketing. It was at the conventions. It was at the reveals. They could have some fun with it. And yes, it is competition, and these companies wanted to win. But in a way, some of it almost leans into that like friendly competition area. Maybe not completely, but the understanding is there that for one to succeed, they need the other. And when you have competition between companies where you can use that in things like marketing to build that brand loyalty with customers and bring that player base over to you for the new thing that you're coming out with, that competition fuels the whole industry. It makes people go out there and spend the money, and it makes for the players to make that choice. I remember back in the day, the 16-bit era, my parents were the fact that they were able to do this for me and my brother was amazing. We were very lucky. We got to be able to have a game console, pick a game console, and it came down to the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo. Now, growing up, and still even now to this day, my brother was never much of a gamer. Like, he played some games and enjoyed a bunch of them, but he was more very specific ones. I was more of the overall, like, kind of trying out everything that I could. So the decision really landed on me for the most part. But the choice was between a Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, and I went with the Sega Genesis. So at that point in my life, I was the Sega kid. That's what we were labeled back then, guys. You were either a Sega kid or a Nintendo kid. That's pretty much how it went, for the longest time. But that competition is what drove the industry. Like, it just pushed things forward, and these developers used it as motivation to make the best product they could, create the best characters they could come up with, create the best level design they could make, come up with the best story in the game, come up with the most flashing lights, the shining, the big booms, the everything, the whole thing. The whole thing was fueled by that competition. And we loved it. We loved it. Now, don't get me wrong. There were like actual fights that happened between gamers. I mean, Nintendo versus Sega, that was a big deal. And when you're choosing sides out on the playground, there were stakes. This mattered, right? You were a Mario kid or you were a Sonic kid. There was like no middle ground. But that was the best part, because it made it fun. And it created sometimes heated conversations, but it created conversation and people talking about and debating what was better, why they liked the one thing versus the other, who had more experience with what. And for the most part, a lot of kids only had experience with one side. And for me, My main experience in the 16-bit era was with the Sega Genesis. I still got to play Super Nintendo through family and friends that had it, but that would be only when we went there to visit, or maybe sometimes they brought the system over. That was so much fun because then it made that like, it's like you had the thing, what's the phrase? The grass is always greener, right? On the other side. That's like I had the Sega, but there would be plenty of times where I'm like, man, I wonder if I should have gone with a Super Nintendo. What would it be like right now if I had a Super Nintendo? Oh my goodness, what would it be like if I had both? All that stuff, right? As a kid, these are the thoughts we had. These are the conversations we had with our friends. And it was so much fun. It was fun. And yes, it was a competition, but it was fun. And that's what made it so special. This point where we are in the gaming industry right now, we're in a very weird space right now. There is that golden opportunity just sitting there on the table, and all we need is for someone in the industry to be brave enough to grab it. And I think Sega should be the one. Yo, Brian, with the timing. I love it. I think Sega should be the one to grab it. And for all I know, I have no insider information. I don't have anything like that. For all I know, Sega might have been cooking this whole time. And they may come out of nowhere with a brand new Sega console, and that would just, man, that would turn heads. It would be the most exciting reveal in gaming history. I'm not even exaggerating. Think about it. Think about the reveals we have had in gaming history, and there have been some amazing ones. A comeback from Sega into the console war would shatter it all. That's what I think. That's me. That's me, a 44-year-old Sega kid. That's my thought on that. That it would be the biggest event, the biggest reveal in gaming history to this date. And it's right there. That opportunity is there. And Sega, yeah, given the balls Sega had back in the day, we need a revival. Yes, and think about it. Everything about Sega back in the day, it was about that edge, that edginess to it. Everything was cooler. Everything was grungier. Everything was more badass. They were the system. They were like, the cool kids got the Sega, and Sega does what Nintendo don't. All of this stuff. We need that back. We need the commercials on the air where they're taking shots at the other one. I mean, even it wasn't just gaming companies. Remember back in the day, like just soda companies and stuff like that, Coca-Cola versus Pepsi and things like that. There was the competition in the commercials. Car companies. This is the stuff that helped sell their products. And they could do it in fun ways. It wasn't like cheap shots. I mean, sometimes there were, but it wasn't just that. It was like creative ways of taking a jab at their competition, and sometimes in ways without even having to flat out say it. But we, as the customers, we knew what they were talking about. McDonald's versus Burger King, all of this stuff, Pizza Hut versus Domino's, all of this competition has gone away. It doesn't really exist anymore. And I think that's why the whole act of buying things, of shopping for something, of collecting things, of going into a store and picking what you're going to have, which brand you're going to go with, there's a whole side of that that's missing now. There was a level of joy that used to come with that. Almost pride. Think about it. Some people were like very brand loyal, and there was a sense of pride that came with that. But when's the last time we've had that? You know, it's gone away. That's the thing that makes me almost want to cry, is that form of competition, my kids don't know it. You know, they all their stuff is about these weird, very fast disposable experiences. Now, I know I grew up with all kinds of fads and stuff like that that, came and went, and I'm sure they were very silly, and parents were probably looking at the stuff we had and were like, what the heck is this crap? I had Pogs. You guys remember Pogs? I had tons of those. I want them to have like an experience with these things. Like, there was a whole fun aspect of brand loyalty. There was a fun aspect of saying, like, I like that brand. I like that thing. I like Pepsi or whatever. It's like, I like this, that. I was a Nintendo kid. I'm a Sega kid. There was the fun that goes with that. And we have a huge opportunity to bring that back. And it's up to these companies to do it. Thank you so much for watching that video. Be sure to click that like button and stick around for more content like this right here.